All right, good evening, everyone. We are going to get started right on time, and thank you for having me. I'm Jen Heaton-Jones. I'm the Executive Director of the Housatonic Resources Recovery Authority. We are the regional governmental recycling waste management authority serving 14 municipalities in Western Connecticut. I have been with the HRA for 13 years, and we were created in 1986 when the state stopped permitting landfills and closed them. We are considered a municipal agency under Connecticut state law. We manage the waste supply and disposal agreements for our member municipalities, and we assist towns with compliance and state regulations, including the town of Kent. We provide public education programs to schools and organizations and one-day special events like HHW. We register and permit all the waste and recycling haulers, also known as collectors, and you should know that every collector must be permitted in order to do business in your town. So my goal tonight is to inspire you, perhaps change your view on what waste is, what it means to you, how to better manage it, and even make less of it through our new Sustainable Material Management pilot program that we're going to be introducing to the town of Kent. Before we go further, I do want to thank First Selectman Gene Speck for having me and trusting me in this great facilitation of this program. And I am going to have you monitor and ask everyone to stay on mute as we go, and we will answer questions at the very end of my presentation.
And thank you, Jen, for taking your Tuesday night. And I hear you have a grandbaby that is in an hour and a half going to be calling your name. So we'll make sure we stay on time.
It'll be a miracle if she's already calling my name, but yes, thank you.
Right, because she's like 2 weeks old, right?
Well, yes, 1 week. So.
1 week, oh my God.
So thank you. Yes, so it's exciting. So we'll move this presentation along in the Q&A, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to start with the solid waste management. Garbage is what most people, trash is what most people call it, but you know, it is a universal issue and it affects every single person and business in the world. So I want you to think about that for just one moment. In your town alone, in the town of Kent, no matter your financial status, your ethnic origin, every single person generates trash. Not everybody owns a home or has children or owns animals or drives a car even, or takes public transportation throughout the region, but everyone does generate solid waste and it must be managed. And everyone must obtain services for that waste disposal, or you can take it to your local transfer station, or what some of us call it a town drop-off. And I'm not quite sure if folks know that recycling is mandatory in Connecticut. Who is required to recycle? Everyone. The Mandatory Recycling Act went into effect in Connecticut in January of 1991. It applies to every business, every household, every institution, and every government agency. And everyone in the state is required to recycle glass, food and beverage containers, metal, food and beverage containers, newspapers, corrugated cardboard, boxboard, magazines, leaves even, scrap metal, used motor oil, and lead acid batteries. That's the list of mandatory recyclables. Obviously not everything goes into one stream, but that is the list of the mandatory by the law. Every person, every institution must recycle those items. And who is responsible for providing recycling services? Well, it's really the building owner, you yourself, an association, the business themselves. We all are, depending on who owns the dwelling in which we live. The law requires source separation. This means that you must separate the recyclables from your trash where they are generated. Your hauler cannot separate them later if they have been mixed. So that's a big question that comes to the HRA. I saw my hauler mix their recycling with the waste, and they told me they sort it later. That is not true. They cannot do that, and if they're telling you that, that is not accurate. And we do ask that you would contact the HRA, and we will help manage that. Schools are also required to recycle, so I hope that you will support your public and private schools to make sure that they also are honoring the mandatory recycling from the state of Connecticut. So now think about this. No matter which generator you represent, the individual, the resident, the business, the school, the municipality, we put the trash out and we really forget about it. We don't worry where it will go, just when will it go. This is part of our problem. We are not invested in a circular economy. We just want it to go away. And no matter the end markets or the final destination for the material, it starts with the people. You and I willing to do the right thing. The right thing is often a cultural change, a shift in behavior, a new attitude, which is something that we're going to be talking about tonight, this pilot program. And what motivates people ultimately is their wallet. If it costs too much, most people will actually reject it. And if it doesn't cost anything, they often will take advantage. So it's a fine line. And Americans produce more waste per person than any other place on earth. And so I want to take a deeper dive at what is in our trash. So this data is from a study conducted by Connecticut DEP. It shows what we here in Connecticut are throwing away in our household trash. And I want to look at this pie chart and go through it with you and see what is it made up of. This is regular household trash that residents are putting in. So like organics, which we're going to talk about even further later, which is food scraps. 32% of our waste stream is made up of organics. This combination of food scraps and other organic matter that might be some brush that got into the waste stream. Unfortunately, people do put brush in their waste stream, and it could be composted, or even flowers and other organic matter. 2% is glass, which we know we can recycle. Metal can be recycled, it's 5%. Plastics can be recycled, that's 13%. And 25% of our waste stream is paper. So all of that material that we just mentioned is all material that can be recycled, repurposed, reused, and yet it's going through our regular waste stream. And then we have a small amount, 11% of construction and demo. Folks are probably renovating a small bathroom, or maybe they replaced a window or a door, and that material is going through our regular household municipal solid waste stream. And much of our construction and demo actually can be repurposed, reused, or it could be recycled fibers into fiber composite lumber, etc. So we could remove that. 0.4% is hazardous waste, which is for the safety and health of our collectors and our material recovery facilities, as well as our waste to energy plant facilities workers. It's very dangerous. And household hazardous waste should really go to an HHW event. 2% of our waste stream is electronics, and they can be recycled, and they can be collected and disposed of for free at any of our recycling centers, drop-off locations that municipalities facilitate. And then we're left with this small black piece of the pie, which is other, 10%. And that's material that really cannot be repurposed, reused, or recycled, and it's really, truly waste. So 90% of our municipal solid waste, our residential waste, doesn't have to be waste. And we could really address the waste crisis that's in Connecticut. And that waste crisis is the fact that we actually produce more waste than we have capacity to manage. So you know, our waste in Connecticut goes to a waste to energy plant, an incinerator. That was decided in the late 80s that the state of Connecticut would close all of the landfills throughout the state and implemented infrastructure for incineration, 100% incineration. We are actually the only state in the union that is 100% incineration with no landfills. All the other states have a combination of both, either all just landfill or a combination of both landfill and waste to energy. The one problem with that is the 6 plants that we had are now down to 4. Our plant in Wallingford and Hartford have closed. Hartford closed last year, bringing us to this issue, what we're calling the waste crisis, where we produce 3.5 million tons of garbage waste, and yet we only have the capacity for 2.7 million tons of waste. So what do? We don't have enough room. We're shipping it out of state. So we're shipping about 860,000 tons of solid waste out of the state. And what does that look like? It will take 125,000 trucks to transport all of the waste, that 3.5 million tons throughout the state of Connecticut, and over 28, just actually short of 29,000 trucks to ship that waste out of state to out-of-state landfills. So we want to shore up that gap in capacity, and the state is looking at innovative ways, including pay-as-you-throw and organics programs, to see if we can close the gap of the 800,000 tons. And this, just as a visual, this actually, there's only 350 trucks on this slide. And as I just told you, there's over 125,000 trucks that it takes to move the material throughout the state. So at a waste energy plant, they have, this is the place where the hopper is, the material is collected and it's picked up and put into the hopper. And I'm going to show you a video how a waste energy plant works. Before I do that, I'm going to have to share my sound, so bear with me.
Wheelabrator Technologies owns and operates modern energy from waste facilities. Unlike conventional power plants, these sophisticated facilities safely and effectively convert waste materials into clean, renewable energy, recycling useful byproducts. Here in our plants, we weigh post-recycled waste delivered from residential, commercial, and special waste customers before transporting it to the tipping floor. Material is visually inspected before being pushed into the fuel bunker. This renewable fuel can vary widely in moisture content and thermal value, so it is continually managed and monitored in the bunker to ensure consistency. Overhead cranes then load the material into hoppers, where hydraulic rams feed the waste fuel into integrated furnace boiler units. In these units, we combust the waste fuel at extremely high temperatures, moving it steadily through the boiler on reciprocating grate systems that ensure complete combustion and minimize residues. We continually draw air from the waste storage areas into the boiler, creating a constant negative pressure that prevents the escape of dust and odors. A selective non-catalytic reduction system injects a urea mix into the combustion gas to reduce nitrogen oxide emissions. Hot combustion gases pass by a series of boiler tubes filled with water, creating high-pressure steam. The steam is used to drive turbine generators and produce electricity, which is sold to electrical grids to power local homes and businesses. The steam can also be sold to industrial processes or for district heating and cooling. We condense the remaining steam into purified water and return it to the system to allow further renewable energy production. Prior to safely disposing of the inert ash, we remove and recycle ferrous metals, such as iron and steel, and non-ferrous metals, such as copper and aluminum, from the ash residue that are sold and recycled into new products. At Select Ash Monofills, our enhanced metals recycling technologies extract further quantities of metals from the ash residue that are sold and recycled into new products. After heat from combustion or flue gas is absorbed in the boiler to produce steam, the flue gas exits the boiler and powdered activated carbon is injected to capture mercury and trace organic compounds. The flue gas then enters a spray dryer absorber or dry scrubber, where lime is combined with the gas to neutralize acid gases, including sulfur dioxide and hydrogen chloride. The flue gas then passes through a fabric filter or electrostatic precipitator, where particulates, including fly ash, lime, carbon-containing mercury and organics, and any remaining pollutants are removed. Cleaned flue gas exits through the stack after a series of continuous emissions monitors analyze and record emissions levels. Because energy from waste facilities provides such an essential and continuous environmental service, we closely monitor our operations from each facility's control room. Our plant engineers are supported by technical experts in our U.S.-based performance center in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. With a proven technology that safely converts diverse waste materials into clean energy and recycles commercial byproducts, Wheelabrator helps sustainably power communities while protecting the environment.
So it's interesting, it's fascinating. This is what happens to our waste. It's incinerated. But I want you all to pause for a second and think about the fact that there is a, there are impacts, environmental impacts, to whether it's landfilling or waste to energy. The landfilling obviously has an impact to our aquifers and land mass. And then waste to energy plant, although it's a very fancy video and shows that they have scrubbers and filtration systems to prevent air quality pollution, we have to also consider that everywhere where there's a waste to energy plant, there are higher asthma rates. So there must be some correlation. And we also have to consider that there's an environmental justice and social justice aspect to this, that it's easy for all of us in Western Connecticut and our beautiful Litchfield Hills and the town of Kent to put our garbage at the curb and let it go disappear, and it goes to the waste energy plant in Bridgeport, and we don't have to think about it. But we really should think about it. We really should think about our neighbors in Bridgeport and the impact that it has on them, and the waste that the capacity difference between what we're generating and what we have capacity for and where it's being sent out of the state of Connecticut. We should really be considering the impacts to those communities as well, whether that's upstate New York, Pennsylvania, or Ohio. That's our waste, it's our responsibility. So I do believe that we are at crossroads, and it's time for us to consider, how do we set that course? What direction do we take? How will we achieve a more sustainable system to collect, process, and dispose of our waste into the future? And if we're going to take a comprehensive approach to solid waste management in Connecticut, we need to look beyond the household trash and recycling as well. And so I hope that now that you've seen where our waste goes and know that we have a capacity issue, we can sort of dive into some of the solutions. So the state of Connecticut really needs to build a solution around waste reduction. What does that mean? It means that we need to look beyond waste disposal as just waste to energy or landfilling, and really consider alternative methods of managing material that includes reuse, repurpose, repair, remanufacturing, and recycling. And the items we dispose of are resources. They're not just waste. So waste reduction is waste that just never gets created, and it doesn't have waste management costs. And there are some ways that we can get there. So here are some solutions related to waste reduction. Maybe another solution is to pull the waste stream apart and to build stronger source separation programs, such as the organics program, food scrap drop-offs for those who don't want to home compost. And we are very proud that Kent has joined the HRA in this effort in regards to textiles and organics. And then there's this effort into implementing textile programs that collect everything, not just items that can be resold, source separation of glass that I can also explain shortly. And then what about changing the way we pay for trash, requiring the generator, you and me, and every individual to pay for the volume by unit, forcing us as individuals or businesses to reevaluate the volume of material that we're actually disposing of. It's called unit-based pricing. Some call it pay as you throw. I like to call it save as we throw. And so many people are against it, but when you understand it better, you can realize it could actually save you money, a lot of money, because waste is measured by weight, not volume, and that's how we pay for it. I want you to think about it like a utility. If your electric bill was set at $200 a month and you had no say in the cost, would you be mindful of turning off your lights? Maybe you would just leave them on because there's no incentive to do otherwise. And no matter how much you use, it's the same amount every month. So think about, because you do pay for the amount of electricity you use, you are mindful. Well, we can do the same for trash. You all pay the same amount every month if you have curbside collection. And even with the transfer station, it's one set fee. You don't have a discount. Because trash tends to be around $30 a month, I would say, some $30 to $50. Many people just ignore it. And actually could be cheaper. Why shouldn't trash be measured and paid for accordingly? And what if it was? Folks would change their habits and produce less waste. So lastly, if we made more manufacturers and producers responsible for end-of-life management of their products, we make them share the responsibility of disposal and cost, like through EPR, extended producer responsibility. We also might find that we have less waste in our waste stream, in our municipal solid waste stream. So the state of Connecticut has mattresses, paints, thermostats, e-waste, which is electronics, and cylinders now as extended producer responsibility laws. Those are all products that now consumers and residents can dispose of at their local transfer stations at no additional cost. It's built into the cost of the product. And just last week, we passed extended producer responsibility for tires, and that will be implemented in about 2025. So a little bit about what is EPR. It is a policy approach that assigns producers responsibility for end-of-life management of their products. This can include both financial responsibility and operational responsibility. Though the amount and the type may differ, producers are required to provide funding and or services that assist in managing the covered products after the use phase. And most EPR programs for packaging encourage or require producers of packaging products to join a collective producer responsibility organization. We call it a PRO, though many allow producers to comply individually. The PRO then develops a producer responsibility plan and then manages the producer responsibility program. And in some states, these components are referred to as a stewardship organization or a stewardship plan. The PROs are typically required to be nonprofit organizations, and they oversee the whole program. So we currently, as I had mentioned, have the 5 laws, and I'm excited also that propane cylinders are also a new law that was implemented last year. So how does EPR programs work? Like the use of the mattress program, for example, when you buy a mattress, you pay an eco fee. If anyone has bought a mattress recently, you were charged a $12, I think it's actually $11.75 fee per unit. That will carry it for its life. And so in 10 years or 20 years, when that mattress, it's time to get rid of it or buy a new one, you can drop it off at no additional cost, and it will pay for it to be taken to a facility where it'll actually be recycled. They are filleted. The textiles from the mattress are recycled into either carpet underlay or insulation. The metals are captured and made into new products, and all of the wood in a box spring are also recycled into composite lumber, as an example of one EPR program. So essentially, EPR creates a circular economy. The products and services in a circular economy are designed in a way that allows them to be reused. And instead of this linear economy where we take resources from the environment, we make a product and we just dispose of it. It's just linear. In a circular economy, we're keeping things in motion, and they go from manufacturer to retail to us, back to a recycling processor, back to the manufacturer, and back to retail. That's a circular economy. And it saves resources as well as money for everyone. So let's dive into recycling. So single stream recycling, that is now referred to as mixed recycling, became popular for its convenience in 2013. Residents put everything they think could or should be recycled into their carts. It was designed to make recycling easy in hopes people would recycle more, but it actually has resulted in people recycling wrong, and it has really hurt the quality of the material we are trying to recycle. And the amount of trash, also known as contamination, increased so high, it created the crisis called the China Sword a few years ago, back in 2018, when China banned many scrap materials, what's typically in the recycling bin we call scrap material, and wouldn't accept material unless it met an extremely strict contamination rate of 0.5%. Now, compare that to the contamination rate that we typically see in the recycling stream, which runs 15 to 25%. So China wanted us to get from 15 to 25% contamination to 0.5%. And because that gap was so large, much of the material was rejected. And before 2018, China had been the destination for about 40% of the United States paper, plastic, and other recyclables. So it created a pretty big crisis of what to do with the material we were generating. But the good news is we now have domestic markets. So it really forced us to really look at what did we have for outlets and resources? And since 2018, we've begun to move material without the dependence of China. And finally, we're seeing the value of material beginning to increase. But in order for the collection and disposal system to be sustainable, we must take a new look at what we recycle, how we recycle, and learn why it's important to recycle right, not just recycle more. So I want you to remember the purpose of recycling is to reduce the amount of natural resources we mine from the earth and recirculate those resources by recycling existing products, that circular economy. And for example, anything made of aluminum can be recycled repeatedly, infinitely, not only cans, but aluminum foil, food trays, window frames, automotive components, all can be melted down and used to make the same or other products again and again, rather than having to mine it, bauxite ore, from the environment, which takes an enormous amount of energy, labor, and cost. Once it's aluminum, it's always aluminum. So I want you to think about when you're recycling, what is the purpose? It's not just to get rid of it, it's actually, you're thinking of it as a resource, not as a waste. So I also want you to look at the recycling stream, what's in our recycling stream. We measure waste and recycling by the weight, not the volume, so it's not always easy to have a visual on the stream. This chart is the composition of our mixed recycling stream. By weight, this chart depicts what is in a ton of mixed recyclables. And the most important piece of this chart is to be aware of is the trash. Everything else essentially belongs in the stream. It's a little different. The flip of the municipal solid waste chart that I showed you. So everything else, everything but the black, is all the stuff we want. But 20% of our recycling stream is garbage. So we're paying for it as recycling, but it's really trash. And we want to change that. We want to reduce that gap. We want to increase the recycling, reduce our solid waste, increase recycling, but also get rid of that 20%. I also have a news flash. I want you to ignore the numbers, forget everything you ever learned. So have you ever wondered about those little numbers inside the triangle of arrows on the bottom of your plastic container? They tell you the kind of plastic used to the manufacturers, like the soft drink bottles, the laundry detergent packaging, the milk jugs, and other plastic bottles that you purchase. Those numbers and letters are intended as an identification code to facilitate the recycling process. It's good to know, but not to use. And so we're going to go over the what's in and what's out guide. It's called the State of Connecticut's What's In, What's Out Universal Guide to Recycle Right. We're going to go over that quite shortly, but first, I want you to understand, where does our recycling go? And then you'll kind of understand why we can recycle what we can and what we can't. This is a material recovery facility. We call it a MRF, where the recyclables are sorted and baled and sold as a commodity into the market to be made into new products. And I'm going to show you a video.
Here's how he works. First, trash from the tipping floor is loaded into a hopper, and it's transported up the conveyor belt where it's metered for consistent volume. As incoming material moves along the conveyor belt, workers pull out large items and those materials not capable of being recycled. Unusable garbage is also picked out at this time. These items are placed into a bin and will be transported to a final destination where they recover the energy through incineration. The recyclables continue down the conveyor belt to the first stage, a 3-tier sorting system. The screener allows the cardboard to float to the top of the discs, and 3D material falls below. Since glass is the heaviest, it's crushed between steel plates and drops to the bottom level, where it's transferred to the glass cleanup system. The recyclables are then passed through the polisher, which separates out the newspaper. This material is then quality checked and placed into bins for later baling. The next polisher removes all the remaining fiber or mixed paper with the same quality check stations and bin storage for later processing. Mr. MRF sorters are trained to ensure items are sorted accurately throughout the process. As a result, the amount of contamination in the final recycling bale is greatly reduced giving us a 95% recovery rate. Now that all the fiber and glass have been removed, the remaining 3D objects such as aluminum, metal, and plastics move on to the second stage of processing. The metal is pulled from the conveyor stream by a cross-belt magnet. This pulls metal, tin cans, and all other ferrous material. The next stage uses an anti-magnet called an eddy current. This machine creates a force field that repels the aluminum up and over a divider while forcing the plastics to fall down into the next stage of optical scanning. The first pass of optical scanning separates the PET or plastic 1 from HDPE or plastic 2. The PET plastic is color commingled with lids and labels attached. The final optical scanning pass separates the natural or clear HDPE from the colored. This optical scanner can identify which plastics have colors and which don't. By identifying each container's position on the belt, colored plastic is blown into one bin, while clear plastic falls off the belt into a separate bin. When all materials are sorted, each one is pushed onto a conveyor belt that brings them to the baler. The baler compresses the material, which can then be shipped off to create new products from the recycled material. Each bale can weigh anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500 pounds.
Okay, I stopped the video there because it just goes on for a few minutes, but it gives you a visual of what actually happens at a material recovery facility.
Jen, it's really remarkable to me, two things, that there are so many people involved in that sorting. The first time I saw that video, I was really surprised that there's as much human touch to get that stuff sorted. And also the technology, like all of the optical scanners that are used. I was just really surprised that there's so much human touch and so much high-end technology that goes into sorting all of this stuff. It was just worth a remark to me.
And it's even more impressive when you see it in person. So it's really fascinating. So we'll continue about who all that material is going there, and all of this material that is ultimately the purpose is to bale it and to sell it as a commodity, but someone has to be responsible for the material that goes there. And who is responsible for recycling, right? We are, ultimately, we are as individuals, but in reality, that's not really what's happening. You know, residents really want one thing when it comes to waste, to get rid of it, and many without any care or thought about what actually happens to it. And so I'm glad that you were impressed with the facility, and if there are folks who actually want to see a material recovery facility in person, I do organize and facilitate those tours on behalf of our residents when it's requested. But I want to show you the truth. So the truth about mixed recycling is it's typically dirty, it's bagged, it's mixed with unacceptable material, and this is what we call contamination. This is what contamination actually looks like. And this is curbside material. I just want to put a shout out to Rick and Rob at the transfer station in Kent, because they do an amazing job. The material that we actually collect at our transfer stations throughout our region are much cleaner than what you're going to see here. But I have 14 municipalities. We have 12 transfer stations. And I'm not just saying this because I'm here talking to Kent tonight. I really, truly mean this when I say Rick and Rob are the best attendants we have in our region. They are attentive, they care, they know what can and can't be recycled. They've taken the time to learn. They attend my monthly transfer station operators meetings and regional recycling task force, and they really put a lot of effort in it. So if you are a current transfer station participant and they're picking things out and you're putting stuff in, don't take offense. Actually be honored that they are doing such a great job to help us fix this problem that I'm trying to convey this evening. Because the reality of what we're facing is not just about what to do with the material, but how do we get the generators, the residents, the businesses to change their behavior to do the right thing and to improve the system, and they're part of that solution. So I want you to look at this picture. It's awful. It doesn't even look like recycling. It actually looks like trash, and that's because much of it is trash. We need to educate our residents on how to recycle right, and that's what I hope to do and inspire you tonight as part of this presentation. One of the questions that always arises, why is there so much contamination? And the primary factors might actually surprise you. Some won't. I mean, the number one actually is simple non-compliance. That probably doesn't surprise you. Some residents and businesses just blatantly are bad. They have no intention on recycling and they just use their recycling bin as a second trash can. But these are the shockers. The believers and the hopefuls. Those are actually the culprits. So the believers are the people who think virtually everything is recyclable, and they don't mean it to be bad. And the hopefuls are those who think it should be recyclable, and they put it in the stream. And that's just as bad. And then the number four reason why we have contamination is route-specific issues. Contamination is seen in some communities due to transient population or language barriers, and we see a lot of that in more of the urban areas. So hopefully if you are a believer or a hopeful out there, I'm going to change your mind tonight. So I want you to guess what this is. Since we have everyone on mute, I won't waste your time. I'm going to tell you what it is. It's glass. It's glass that has been sent to a material recovery facility via mixed recycling stream. Glass is very complex. It's a complex issue, but I am really proud of what we've done in the HRA region, including the town of Kent has a glass-only bin. And the reason you have a glass-only bin is because of this. And, you know, glass is infinitely 100% recyclable, just like aluminum. And it takes less energy to produce a glass bottle from recycled glass than from raw material. So what's the problem? It's the way we have been collecting glass. That's the problem. Glass should be collected separately, but it has become universal in the last 10 years to collect it in our mixed recycling stream. Why? Because it's convenient, not because of any other reason. And if you remember back in the day, before 10 years ago, or actually now it's probably more like 13 years ago, I can't keep track of time, before we implemented single stream, we all separated our glass separately. No one ever thought twice about separating our glass when we recycled it. But because it became easy and convenient to have single stream, we just loved it and it became convenient. But guess what? This glass that goes to a material recovery facility doesn't get recycled. It's sent to a landfill for alternate daily cover 500 miles out of the state of Connecticut. So that's what really actually happens up until recently. And now that we have the glass-only program, it's actually being kept in the state of Connecticut. We have 2 glass processors, one in South Windsor, Strategic Material, that makes bottle-to-bottles. And then we have Urban Mining that makes actually an industrial filler for cement out of our recycled glass. But I want you to take an even closer look and see what the problem is. There's prescription bottles and bottle caps and shredded paper, and there's batteries and other bits, and they do not belong in the recycling stream. And education alone will not stop people from putting it in. It really is behavior change. And, you know, a lot of people think, well, the prescription bottle or the bottle cap is plastic, and so therefore it must be recyclable. But if it's 2 inches minus, if it's smaller than 2 inches, it will basically fall through the screens with the glass that gets crushed, and that's what it looks like. So this is what's happening to your glass. So I really hope that tonight, if you haven't been separating your glass, I will inspire you to begin to separate your glass so it actually gets recycled. It's not mandatory at the transfer station or for the town of Kent to use the transfer station to recycle your glass, but I encourage you to take part in that program so that when you're actually recycling your glass, it actually gets recycled and is not sent 500 miles out of the state. This is an example of the container that we use throughout the region, and this is what it should look like. This is what glass looks like when we recycle it separately. Isn't that beautiful? I mean, it's like after you see that ugly pile of dirty glass, this becomes beautiful. I just want to take a couple of notes and some more images. Shredded paper, it does not belong in the extreme. It should be recycled separately because of the simple fact that it is paper. Folks put it in the blue bin. Why? Because they want it to be recycled, just like those little plastic caps and the plastic prescription bottles. They wish for it to be recycled, even when we tell them no. Listen, paper is highly recyclable, particularly office paper. We want office paper. We can sell it as a commodity, but when it's shredded, you can't put it in the mixed stream because it just falls through the screens and becomes part of the residual, becomes part of this contamination stream. So my recommendation is if you have a 20-page document and the first 2 pages are confidential, shred the first 2 pages, recycle the rest. So just shred the material that's actually confidential, or you can use a service. We do have some transfer stations. I'd have to look on the board to see if Kent is one of our locations where we collect shredded paper separately. So if you do shred at home, you can bring it. You're shaking your head yes, Jean, that you do take it separately. Great.
Yep, we have
Kent is
drop
one of
off
our
and then
drop-off
we have,
programs.
yep, and then we have
Perfect. So
also
if you
twice a year, we have shredded events on Saturday.
So I highly recommend that, so we actually capture that high value material. So that's a good visual. Propane tanks are bombs. And a lot of people think because they're metal, they should go in the recycling stream. They do not belong in the recycling stream, neither does cement blocks. These are all, this is material that's actually on the MRF landing. They should never go in. Propane tanks come in all sizes, 1 pound to 20 pounds. They are not always empty, and they essentially are that small bomb when they hit the baler. So I just showed you how a material recovery facility works after the metal is sorted. So those really small 1 pound cylinders are really hard to find on the line, and the magnet grabs it, puts it, sends it to the rest of the metal, gets baled, and when it hits the baler, it explodes. So it's really important that you recycle your propane tank separately, and there's more information on their HRA website for that. So just because something is metal, it doesn't belong in the recycling bin. These are tangles. This is what we call them, cords and wires that folks want to believe can be recycled. They get wrapped around the equipment and cause major shutdowns at the MRF, adding more cost to the processing. You can actually recycle these, but not in your single stream. You can recycle them at the transfer station in the e-waste container. There's actually a lot of precious metal. There's copper that's in all of our electronics, and they strip those wires and reclaim the copper that's in them. I don't really think I need to say much about this one, but I do. Dead plants and recycling stream. I have to believe that the reason this person put it in their recycling stream is because of the plastic container that it was in. Why they didn't take out the dead plant in the soil is beside me, but the pot itself actually is also not acceptable. But this is the reality that transfer stations and material recovery facilities face when it comes to material management. The bottom line, there are controllable elements and uncontrollable elements when it comes to material management. And the very first step is the material entering the stream at the curb, at the business, at the transfer station. And we really need the individuals, you, I, our neighbors, our friends, to learn about recycling right and to care because it has a negative impact. This is to let you know why we don't allow plastic film, plastic bags in the single stream. This is the V-screen separator in the material recovery facility. It's actually where it sorts the paper. Every 3 to 4 hours, they have to shut down the entire system. So these men, if you can see, there are 2 men in the screen at the bottom in yellow shirts. They have to manually cut those bags out from the V-screen separator, and then they're just a big pile of mess, and they're just disposed of as garbage. So if you want to recycle your film, there is a take-back program for film, and mostly at retail. So I encourage you to return film to retail at the grocery store, at Kohl's, Target, Home Depot. Most of our retailers have a front of the house collection for plastic bags and film. So this is our goal. Our goal is to produce clean, valuable material to be manufactured into new products. The only way that we can make that happen is if we recycle right. So now we're going to go through the recycling universal guide for the state of Connecticut. And this is how we get there. And I'm really proud to be a part of this process through the state of Connecticut, the Recycle CT Foundation, and this universal guide. And it is called the What's In, What's Out. So we're going to review it. We're going to go by the 4 categories, and we're going to start with metal. So the top portion of this, and these flyers are all available to everyone. They're available on our website. We can give more to the town. They're available at the transfer station. So if you want one for your kitchen or your office, you can just ask for it. So metal, the green section is the what's in, and the blue section is what's out. So for metal, aerosol containers, food grade only. So like a olive oil spray, whipped cream spray, those are aerosol containers that are food grade. We want them. If they're empty, we want them in our single stream. Aluminum foil, cans and bottles, foil containers, and metal lids from cans and bottles. Really easy. You saw the material recovery facility. It goes through the line, it hits the magnet pulls it off, and we're able to bail it. Metal's a really easy thing to sort. But what we don't want is aerosol containers that have like deodorant, cleaners, pesticides. They're pressurized. So also spray cans. We don't want that. They're under pressure, and a lot of them are flammable. So we don't want them mixing with other containers or other chemicals and creating a safety issue for those workers that are working on the line. That's why they're out. It's not that they're not recyclable in the sense that they're metal, it's that they're not acceptable because of the system. And you can put those in scrap metal. Aerosol containers can go in your scrap metal container. Foil tops from yogurt containers are out. They just will not get captured. They're actually become part of that MRF glass stream of residual. Paint cans are recyclable, but not in our single stream. If you have paint and you have paint that's left over, you can recycle it at the Kent transfer station. We take paint back. We don't want it dried out. We want it to be liquid form. We actually recycle paint into new paint now. But if you have a paint can that's empty, you use the entire can. You can, if it's latex, peel out the latex that's left over, throw that part away, and scrap your paint can with scrap metal. The same with pots and pans. We don't want it in single stream. They can go in scrap, and any other small pieces of scrap metal. Spiral wound container. A lot of folks don't know what this is. It is things like Pillsbury Doughboy, peanuts, Pringles, chips. There are several containers that are made of cardboard, spiral cardboard. They have a metal bottom and a plastic top at the other end. They're not acceptable in single stream. Unfortunately, it is trash. Some folks will ask me, what if I cut off the bottom? Oh, if you're real diehard, sure, cut off the bottom and recycle the metal, but the rest is trash. All right, glass, we kind of went over glass a little bit. I asked it, I have a typo from another presentation, I apologize. Beverage bottles and jars, food bottles and jars, those are acceptable in our glass only container, but we don't want ceramic mugs, porcelain, and drinking glass. Ceramic and porcelain break like glass, but they're not glass and they are a contaminant. Drinking glasses actually melt at a different rate than beverage bottles and jars. They're all made from a combination of silica, soda ash, and limestone, but because of there are these 3 different types of glass and they're made up of the different composition, the cullet glass, it like I said, it melts at a different rate, and so that's why we only take beverage bottles and jars. All right, paper. What's in cardboard boxes, box boards like cracker boxes, cereal boxes, all in. Food and beverage cartons are like a orange juice carton or milk carton, those are in. Junk mail, obviously old school magazines, newspapers, newsprint, office paper, all in. And the big one people are always confused about, pizza boxes. They used to be out, now they're in. We will take pizza boxes. And the question always comes, well, what if it's really greasy? You have to be mindful. If it's really greasy, although these days they put a liner in it, then you can rip off the top of the box, recycle the top, throw away the bottom. If it's really greasy, maybe you should get a different pizza joint. I don't know, just saying. But we don't want your crust. We don't want the paper. We don't want your knife. We just want the box. What's out is gift wrap and gift bags. We don't want them because they don't all come alike. They're not all just paper. There's ribbons, there's glitter, there's sticky gift labels, there's artificial textures, there's sparkles, there's all sorts of sequins and foil. So, and some wrapping paper is paper, some is plastic, some is foil, and it's just easier for us to say all gift wrap and gift bags are out. Ice cream containers are out. They look and feel like a food and beverage container, but they're actually made of a different composite and they don't have the same value. Remember, we're baling this material, we're selling it to someone for them to use as a resource to be made into something new, and ice cream containers don't have the same value. Same with paper cups, hot and cold. They are not acceptable. They're not all made alike. So it's just better that we tell everybody universally paper cups are out. Better yet, use reusable. Threaded paper, I already went over that. Why? Takeout food containers like Chinese containers, they're out. And they are also a composite of paper, plastic liner, because to help with leakage, and then the metal handle. So they're out. Tissue paper, out. These are all the items that our material recovery facilities do not want. They cannot bale, they cannot sell it, and so therefore it's not recyclable. Plastics. Plastic bottles with or without a cap attached. So it doesn't matter if the plastic bottle has a cap or not. We want you to recycle the bottle. We'll get into the cap in a second. Plastic containers, tubs, and lids. So any kind of tub, plastic tub, container, and its lid that came basically from your home, whether it's from out of your refrigerator, out of your pantry. We'll take a Windex bottle, but you want to take the Windex sprayer top out and you want it to make sure that it's empty. It's not under pressure, so we'll take those types of cleaner in those plastic containers, tubs, containers and tubs. Plastic one-use cups, like a, I just lost my train of thought, the Solo cup, sorry. Solo is a brand name, so they don't use the brand name, but that's essentially what they're referring to, a plastic one-use Solo cup or a Dunkin' Donuts cup, but no lid, no straw, just the cup. I showed you what happens to things that are under 2 inches. Those straws just fall through and become part of that glass residual MRF glass. The lids actually act more like paper and get contaminate the bales of paper. So those lids are out. Okay, what's out for plastic? Loose bottle caps. So if it's loose and it's not attached to the bottle, you need to throw it away. If you want that cap to be recycled, you need to give it a ride. You need to put the cap back on the bottle. It will never make it through the recycling stream. It's under 2 inches, it will fall through, it will just become part of that MRF glass residual. Plastic bags and wrap are out. I showed you a visual what happens. That plastic film gets stuck in that V-screen separator. So we don't want plastic film. I have an asterisk there because, again, you can recycle it, but not with single stream. It needs to be recycled separately at return to retail. Plastic plates, bowls, and utensils, again, never made alike. Some are plastic, some are compostable, and they have food on them. There's residual, so the material recovery facilities do not want it. No one wants to buy them. It does not have value. They're out. The same for prescription bottles, too small, they typically fall through. Often people will say, well, what about a vitamin bottle? Yes, a vitamin bottle, that it's larger, absolutely. It's a white plastic, it has value. It's a container, plastic container, but it's not a prescription bottle, we'll take it. Single-use coffee containers, also known as K-cups. They have a couple of different issues. One, they're under 2 inches, they fall through, they become part of that MRF glass residual. They are also made of polystyrene, and the next item is styrofoam. Anything that's a styrofoam or a styrene is not recyclable or accepted. It has no value. No one wants it. K-cups are actually moving to a polyethylene, but that won't matter because it's still under 2 inches. It has organic matter inside, so those coffee grounds, and it has a foil top. So it has a lot of different issues, a single-use coffee container. I encourage you to use a full coffee maker instead of the single use. Or if you have a Keurig machine or a single use coffee machine, there are reusable cartridges that you can use to pack your own coffee to help reduce the solid waste stream. And I just mentioned styrofoam. All styrofoam cups and containers are out. Anything styrofoam is out. It's trash. If you have styrofoam peanuts or other packaging, you could try a mom and pop packaging store, the FedEx stores or the UPS stores. Often those mom and pops do appreciate reused styrofoam used packaging, and it reduces their own cost, and it's reused and used for another package. And last but not least, water filters. It did make the list. We have a lot of water filters out there, and water filters are a filter covered in plastic. And so it seems that the material recovery facilities who helped determine this list said they receive a lot of water filters in the recycling stream because they are plastic, and we have all those wishful, hopeful recyclers out there. And so please know that water filters are trash. So that is the 4 categories of the what's in, what's out. So recycling is simple. It can work, but you have to go by the what's in, what's out, and just use the in category. Material should be emptied, rinsed, clean, and open. It should never be bagged. It should never be bundled. It shouldn't be boxed because you saw the material recovery facility. You saw everything's moving. There's moving parts. There's magnets and eddy currents and optical sorters and V screen separators. If things are bagged and bundled, they can't be sorted. So it really needs to be loose. Why does it need to be empty and rinsed? It doesn't have to be clean in the regards to like you can eat out of it again, but you shouldn't be able to tell what was in that container for a couple of reasons. One, sanitary, health reasons for our workers, for our sanitation workers. Also, interesting enough, if you have, I'll use a peanut butter jar as an example. If you have a peanut butter jar and it's still full of peanut butter and it's on the sort line and that optical sorter is looking for that clear plastic, but there's peanut butter in it, it can't identify it. Same for jelly or tomato sauce. Rinse it out so it can actually get recycled. It really does make a difference. Not to also forget that the vectors, we don't want to attract possums and raccoons and skunks at our material recovery facilities. These buildings are very large with very large open doors. We don't want to attract them. And heaven forbid, there's a squirrel or a chipmunk eating peanut butter inside the jar going down the line, and then it gets baled. It's a horrible thought, right? But it actually does happen. So last but not least, you are actually not recycling if you're not buying and purchasing recycled content. You have to create that full loop. The recycling symbol is 3 chasing arrows. It's chasing itself because you're consuming it, using it, putting it back in the bin, recycling it, and buying new, and creating that circular economy, not a linear economy. It's not a straight arrow across where we're taking resources, making something and throwing it away. We want to create that circular economy. So if you really want to be a recycler, you need to buy recycled content. So that's the end of the presentation of the trash talk. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're doing at Kent. And so we're going to talk about the transfer station, what's going to happen here, and why it's important. Now that you understand we have this waste crisis in Connecticut, we produce more waste than we have capacity for. Our recycling stream is really dirty. We need to clean it up, but we want more recycling and we want those resources. So we believe, and there has been a lot of studies that shown that pay-as-you-throw systems really do work. They help us become mindful of the material that we're generating. It also saves tax dollars. Right now, all the users pay one fee, $150 annually for the transfer station. You're a senior, you get a discount of $130, and you can throw away as much as you want. And it does sound great, sounds like a great deal, but the town still has to supplement with tax dollars the extra cost. There's that piece. You know where it's now going. It's probably going to out-of-state landfill because we're producing all this extra waste, but we want to be a part of the solution. So we're giving you an incentive. We're going to create this program, this pilot program that is paid for by the Sustainable Material Management Grant from Connecticut DEP. So there is a proposal that will be going to the Board of Selectmen, hopefully this Friday, where we're proposing that we're going to reduce the transfer station fee to $125. The seniors will be $115. If you are not a transfer station user, but you want to use the organics program, it'll be $20 a year for the year to use the organics program, but you don't have to pay any additional cost to drop off your organics. Every permit holder will receive 104 free orange trash bags. They are 13 gallons. That's about 2 garbage bags a week. Every permit holder will receive a 1-gallon vented organics bin that's in this picture, the little black bin, with 104 compostable bags. Those are free. If you want the 6-gallon carry container, they're available for $10. It's less than what we paid for, but it will help us be able to reinvest in the pilot program and keep the pilot program going. They do retail at $20, $25. I am going to take the screen down so that if you want to turn your camera on, if you feel so brave, we can have a discussion about the program and how it will work. I know one of the questions is, when will it start? Our goal is for it to start July 1st. That is our goal. Sounds like we have someone on off mute. Hang on, I'm going to keep everyone on mute for 1 second, just so that I can just finish explaining the when the start date is, and then you're welcome to raise your hand, and then I'll call on you to ask questions. So the goal is to start July 1st. It is already the 13th of June. This has been a very painful process. I will just be very blunt and honest about this. I applied for this grant on behalf of the town of Kent in January of 2022. We were awarded this grant last spring. We were told in November the contract was coming. And it's quite a process, quite a legal process to receive this funding. We actually did not receive the contract in November. We did not receive the contract until last week. Once the contract is signed, it goes back to the commissioner of DEP. The commissioner signs it, goes back to the business office, and then it goes to the attorney general's office for review, and then it comes back to us. So this program will start as soon as we receive the contract. We are not allowed to spend a dime until the contract is back to us. So I am ready to go. We have everything ready at HRA to help the town facilitate this program, but I cannot officially start until we get the contract back by DEEP. And so I hope that everyone will be patient. And if that means that we don't start until July 15th, then we won't start until July 15th. Nothing changes. Your current transfer station permit is still good. And as soon as we are given the green light, we'll start issuing the new permits for the new fiscal year, and everybody will get their 104 trash bags. You might even get a little bonus because it will be more than 52 weeks of bags. And that's pretty much the overview. And I'm happy to answer questions now. So if you could raise your hand so we could have some order, because sometimes Zoom we can talk over each other. So you can use your reaction button. So if you click on your reaction button, you can raise your hand. You can turn your camera on and raise your hand verbal like this. So whatever is easier for you. And Jean, you're welcome to jump in if I missed anything you had hoped that I would cover.
I don't think you missed a thing.
And Gary, okay, and I see Gary Ford has a question. Go ahead, Gary.
Actually, you know, I don't really have a question. I just wanted to say I really like all the work you've done. I thought it was a great presentation. I've spent a lot of time living in Europe. Germany, at least, has a very similar program. It's very successful. I think this is excellent.
Thank you. I appreciate that. No tomatoes from Gary.
And I think that is
And I am envious.
Go ahead, Jen.
Go ahead, Jean. It's okay. Go ahead. I'll tell you what I was going to say.
So I think it's worth saying that this is the Save As You Throw that we're calling it is not, it's not a new model. It's not a new idea. There are many communities in the state of Maine that have decreased their municipal solid waste, which we all pay for by weight. So keep thinking about everything is paid by weight. they've reduced like 30 and 40%. I think, is it North Stonington that's got a program over on the other side of the state that they've been running for years now, and they've reduced their MSW by, double-digit numbers. And so when you think of, not only is it saving the taxpayers money, but it's also getting the right stuff in the right place. And I'm so grateful, Jen, for you showing those videos, because it really shows where all this stuff goes. And, sometimes we see you come and you toss your garbage and off it goes, and that's the end of that. But it's much more complex than that. Thanks. I see.
Yeah, and it is much more complex. And I'm going to call on Roberta in just one second. But it's what's interesting, and I appreciate Gary bringing it up, that Europe has been doing this for decades. And then other states across the country have been doing this for decades. It's not something new. And I think what's really important, and people get a little scared about, is like, oh my gosh, I'm only going to get 2 garbage bags. I have 4 children. We're a pretty large family, and we only produce 2 bags of garbage a week, sometimes less. I'm always shocked. And partly it's because we do compost. I backyard compost, and so it's very helpful. But also what's helpful is you're not necessarily going to completely generate less waste. You're just going to put less waste in that garbage bag, because now you're going to go, oh, wait a minute. I have this towel that's stained, that just got bleached. It doesn't go in my garbage bag. It goes in the textile bin. Oh, I'm replacing my comforter. I'm going to put it in my textile bin. You're not going to put it in your household garbage. There's a lot of things, hopefully you learned tonight through the waste stream and the recycling stream. There's different solutions for waste reduction. And so what you're already generating, including the food waste, you're taking that out. And so by taking out all of these different materials and putting them into the proper stream where it can become a resource, glass, textiles, scrap metal, etc., you actually can meet that goal. And it's a great challenge to take, if not for yourself, for the community. And in the end, remember, it's a pilot program. We're learning. We're going to see, can we do this? Can we pull this off? The town of Bethel is also doing this pilot program, and I'm kind of hoping we'll have a little competition between Kent and Bethel. We'll see who does the best. But I want you to, it's a behavior change. It's a change in our mindset. So that being said, sorry, I'll stop talking. I'm going to have Roberta ask her question, and then Alicia. So go ahead, Roberta.
Well, I'm confused about these orange bags. Are they going to be mandatory?
So this is how the program works. If you are a transfer station participant, you're going to buy your, depending how, if you're getting the senior discount or a regular fee, you'll pay your 125 or your 115, and you will get, as a transfer station participant, 104 bags. We can't make you participate. We're asking you to take the challenge and see what you can do with that 104 bags, those 2 bags a week. If you find that you need more, there will be more available for participants. It's taking the challenge to think mindfully what you're actually producing.
Yeah, I think I don't use 2 garbage bags a week, but I use a bigger garbage bag. I think those garbage bags are too small. You said 13 gallon? All my garbage cans are like 20, 30 gallon garbage cans.
So this is the standard unit-based pricing Savage the Throw bag that nationally Zero Waste uses for these programs. And it will be provided to you. It will fit a kitchen container where you collect your waste. And again, it's not mandatory. We're asking you to take the challenge. And if you choose not to take the challenge, then that is a choice that you're making. So we're not making anyone do it. It's not a mandatory program. We're going to supply them to you for your use. If you want them, there's no extra cost. You get a break this year on your transfer station permit.
Okay. I really think you should let people use their own bags, but charge them for bag.
So being able to use the orange bag is a visual for us to be able to help us track the data, because part of this grant is a lot of data collection that we'll be doing on the back end. And it's also part of getting used to being able to see, okay, did you pay for that bag? If it's just a typical black bag, without these bags will actually be labeled specifically for the town of Kent. It will be more difficult for us to provide the program. And we'll have some additional trash talks with Waste Zero, who will be helping facilitate this program with us, the town Kent. So tonight's not the last meeting that we'll have. We'll continue to have FaceTime with all of you so we can ask additional questions. But these are the bags that are provided that are traditional throughout these programs, throughout the country and Europe. Alicia and then Sarah.
Hi, thank you. I think this program's great. I just want to mention on the bags, in another community, other communities I'm familiar with that do this, you do have to pay per bag. So this is actually beneficial to us to have the bags given to us for the program. But my question is, can you talk a little bit about what is allowed to be composted? I know it's sometimes just vegetables, fruit, that kind of thing. Other places have you put meat into that compost food waste. So what will be allowed in our program?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I probably should have added that as a slide. I think because we'll have another what goes in your bin when we implement the program, and we'll have some FaceTime with folks when we're giving out the kits. And we'll have a dedicated landing page on the HRRA website just for Kent. And you can, if you go now, actually, I will share my screen in just a second and kind of give you all a visual of what you'll have for resources and what will be available for you for a reference. So it's essentially almost all your food, including, you'll be surprised, bones and dairy that you can't put in backyard composting. It's one of the nice things about these programs is that there are organic material that you typically can't compost in your backyard. So sorry, I'm a little distracted trying to pull up my screen for you so that you can get a little bit of a better visual. So you can see my screen, Jean. So this is Ridgefield's landing page. It's a little bit more elaborate. We built a solar-powered composting facility for them, but still the same information regarding there's the container and what is the acceptable items. And so you will also have a dedicated page for this program. We'll talk about the unit-based pricing. You can go to it and understand more. We'll have frequently asked questions like, hey, maybe my bags aren't big enough. Why are you only giving me this size bag? All of those frequently asked questions, and including what is the acceptable organic. So it's flowers and vegetable garden waste, household plants, fruits and nuts, including the pits, vegetables, but please no stickers, no bands, no ties, because what are we making? We're making compost that we're going to put in our gardens. We want to bring it back to the town of Kent. We want Kent to use this compost, so we don't want contamination. Bread, pasta, grains, sauces, soups, gravies, a lot of the stuff most people don't want to use in their backyard compost because it attracts animals. Your coffee grounds, your filters, your tea bags, brown paper towels and napkins are acceptable, eggshells, meat and poultry, including the bones, fish and shellfish. So great if you have a clam bake, you have lobster for dinner, you can bring it to the transfer station and use that and not put it in your household trash. Now your trash will never smell. You're going to take all the smelly stuff out of your garbage. And if you actually are someone who doesn't use the transfer station and you have curbside collection, you will also have the opportunity to save money, because if you take part in just the organics program and you're dropping off organics at the transfer station on the weekends, but have curbside collection, you could call your curbside collector and say, you know what, I don't want weekly pickup. I'm going to do every other week or once a month, and I want a lower cost. Understand there are over 70 registered haulers in the HRR region. They're very competitive. You could probably have the same hauler on the street that's serving all 10 residents, and everybody's paying something different. So utilize that as leverage that, hey, I don't want to pay $30 a month to have you pick it up every week. I want you to come every other week, and I want a break. That's also a sort of pay-as-you-throw system at the curbside. And sorry, I missed a plate scraping. So all of these materials can be used as in the drop-off program, put in that bucket and be brought down to the transfer station. We'll also give you some tips about collecting your food scraps, especially in the warm months. Like, you know, you have these little small 3-gallon bags. It doesn't really hold 3 gallons. It's just the capacity of it is 3 gallons, but you'll probably only have maybe a size of a watermelon or even a cantaloupe sometimes in these little bags. And you can freeze them. You can put them in cool places in your garage or in your basement if you're holding on to them for a week. Those bags are made to decompose, but usually takes a little bit of time. And the reason why those black containers are vented is to slow down the decomposition of that material so that you can hold on to it a little longer. So I hope I answered your question on what goes in. And also I appreciate the question because it reminds me to make sure to tell you that we will have a landing page for you as well. Sarah, do you have any additional follow-up questions to that before I go on to Alicia?
No, I'm Alicia, and thank you. I'm all set.
Oh, Alicia, did I answer your question as well?
That was my question.
Oh, great. Okay.
Jen,
Sarah,
just
do you have a question? Go ahead.
just a side note about what will be able to go into the organic waste. I went down a bit of a rabbit hole about dog waste in the last couple of weeks.
Oh, geez.
And there's a lot of availability of the compostable dog waste bags. And it has sort of tricked people into thinking that dog waste is now compostable if they put it in a biodegradable, you know, green bag with the proper chasing arrows. Dog waste, no matter what it's in, is never, ever compostable. Cat poop, never, ever compostable. No matter what kind of bag you put it in.
Yes, it carries pathogens that are very difficult for the microorganisms to break down, and then it's a health risk when it comes to the finished compost. So that's why it's, we just say, you know, curb your dog, but maybe not in a plastic compostable bag. Put it in the waste or put it in the woods on its own. Sarah.
Yeah, thanks. This is a really great presentation and very informative too. And I've just got a couple of questions, maybe about how we can make Rick's job over at the transfer station a little bit easier. And that is, how do we communicate to some of the townspeople some of this messaging for those who weren't on the call today? And that's sort of like, you know, I did live in Germany and Europe for several years, and they're really good about educating their citizens about, you know, the green glass goes here and this is for composting, and they're really clear about it so that they just make it easy for you. How can we make it a little bit easier for folks in town? And then I also remember being a kid at Kent Center School very early on, and we had a program that came in and they were like, recycle. And there was, it stuck with all of us, right? Because we're sort of a generation that grew up with that. And I'm thinking that this is a really good time to come in with this program at Kent Center School, because it's the kids who are actually going to be kind of educating their parents about how to be good recyclers. So I'm wondering if there's any kind of initiative within the state to sort of, you know, bring this into the school system a little bit more. And then, and then just downtown, when I'm thinking about glass, I mean, one of the things that I did notice when we were in Europe was there, along with just sort of regular recycling, they also did have specific glass recycling. And even there, they do it by white, brown and green glass so that it's separated out. I know we don't necessarily need to do that here, but if in around town, if we had separate glass containers too, if that would be useful for the town to sort of put up and maybe fundraise around to get some people involved in that. And then a final thought with this, may just sort of listening to what Roberta and Alicia had to say about the size of the bags. I know the program set as it is right now, but maybe later on in the future, coming up with QR codes or barcodes that people can affix to the bags, so that you can track and scan them a little bit easier, and then people can have varying size bags depending on what they already have for their garbage equipment.
I like that idea. I'll bring that back to the Waste Zero team in Connecticut Deep. That's actually a great suggestion. I appreciate that. Okay, so I'll start with your communication and messaging. How are we going to get it out to the public? It's a really great question. I'm excited because on top of the town of Kent receiving a grant, HRRA received a grant for project manager. So I get to hire a person who's dedicated, their only sole job is going to be dedicated to this program and for the 3 programs that we have in our region for organics and unit-based pricing. And so they are going to be working with my public education person who I have in-house. They're going to be working with Waste Zero and Connecticut Deep. So we have a lot of hands-on folks who are going to be at your transfer station several weekends a month, face-to-face, working, interacting, promoting this, banners, information, flyers, you name it. We are going to put together some lawn signs and some A-frames to get people who are coming through town to say, hey, look up hra.org. If they can scan the QR code. I'm a big fan of QR codes, so I loved your idea. QR codes are a great way to get people to get more information. And then to address the school presentations, we go to Kent School. So every year, HRA provides a 3rd grade classroom, in classroom presentation on what happens to, it's sort of exactly what you learned tonight, but it's geared towards kids and a little bit more animated, a little bit more of a vector files than the images. And we talk about waste and what happens to your waste and where does it go and how do you recycle right. So we do all of that. We have props and we have them interacting with all the material, like, can you recycle this? Can you recycle that? It's really fun. We also provide an annual billboard contest for all the students to participate. Kent is a great participant in our annual recycling billboard contest. So that is being done, and I hope now that we have this program, we'll also be integrating this as part of our teaching the students and take the challenge, definitely.
I can't remember if it was last year or the year
Did you-
before. It might be hard to see it, but each grade
That's
that,
last year's compost.
yeah, last year's composting poster winners for each grade, I had made into holographic stickers, and you would have thought that I gave away gold bricks. They were such a hit. Who doesn't love stickers?
Right.
Trying to make it fun.
So and you did make it fun, and we stole that idea, and we'll be doing that for future billboard contests. And then the last comment you made about the glass by color, we don't actually have to do that anymore. Back in the day, we didn't have the optical sorters that we have for glass now. It's amazing technology that we can recycle all the glass together and then it's sorted. But the town containers, I love the concept and I love the idea. And in my own perfect world, I'd have containers everywhere for everyone to recycle. Unfortunately, we are all restricted with what we can implement due to union restrictions and town resources. I love the idea if the town could get behind it. I would absolutely support it. HRA does help support and facilitate recycling bins for our member towns. So if it's something the town would want to get behind, I would certainly get behind it as well. But I also understand and respect some of the restrictions that our towns have around collecting material on Main Street. So, but I appreciate that desire to see it happen too. I need more Sarahs and more Garys. So thank you. I see Rick has his hand up.
Hi. Well, thank you for the comments earlier. And one thing about the propane, though, we are not required to take them yet, right? That's a program.
No, you are not required.
So once we get the, I believe it's not till next year, right? That they're the
October of
producers.
2025, actually.
So I just don't want everybody to start bringing all their containers in if we aren't taking them yet.
Good catch, Rick. Good catch. Yes.
What should people do with them now, Rick?
They can, I believe it's either Leahy or takes them back for a small price, or we do have the option of collecting them, but I don't have any place to keep them where we could charge for them and then take them down to Danbury to dispose of them. But that would involve getting the cage for us and stuff like that.
Jen, do the household hazardous waste events take the propane tanks?
So this is what I'm going to tell you. So if you have a 1 pound camping cylinder, anything basically under 5 pounds, bring it to a household hazardous waste event. The next one is in September. For our region, we'll have one September, October, November, and then not again until 2024. So small camping cylinders can go to HHW. If you have a 20 pound tank, yes, for a fee, you could bring it to a Leahy's or some type of propane distributor. But I will tell you, it's very, it's not clear, but the Blue Rhino programs that are exchange programs, you actually can bring a spent cylinder. So if you have a 20 pound cylinder that you no longer want, or it has expired, because they do expire, the valve expires and they have to be reclaimed, you can actually bring those to the exchange program and give it to them, and they'll put it in their cage or they'll put it aside. And when the it's called P-Gain or America or Paraco or Blue Rhino, all of those companies will take them because they have value. And typically there's actually still propane in them, and they'll recapture the propane and they'll scrap the metal or repurpose the cylinder, because the cylinder itself is typically still very good. And just a little tip, interesting fact, that propane never goes bad, not like gasoline. So if you find an old propane tank that's full, that's been in your shed for 20 years, believe it or not, that propane is probably still good. And you can bring it down to Leahy's and say, this tank is really, it's full. They're gonna want that propane, it has value, and they probably wouldn't charge you for it. So little facts on propane.
That's
Sarah?
Yeah, I was just Googling. It looks like Ace Hardware, the one in Kent, would probably do an exchange for you too. And you could probably contact them at the town and see if they'd set up like a specific day for everybody, if there's a, just to raise awareness around it.
Good idea. And I think
Yep, great tip.
Cornwall at the Cornwall gas station, I think, has a an exchange program with one of those vendors that you mentioned, Jen. And I think the one in Epples Bridge still has the cage for
So there you go. There's some resources.
They prefer you doing an
So
exchange.
right. Right, they want you to buy a full one, but I think they will take back the empties.
well, Sarah, I might have to recruit Sarah, because she's right on top of things, and next time I have an opening, I might have to snag her. Thank you for your great ideas. So we are down to 3 minutes. I have I think she's 10 days old. No, she's like 9 days old granddaughter. I just became a grandmom. So she's waiting for me. I get to hold her for the 3rd time. So I'm going to take a couple more questions, and then I'm going to be done. So does anyone else have a question?
I don't see any hands up, and I'd love to give you back now. I think we're at 2 minutes, but any minute I imagine is well worth the cuddles. And again, Jen, thank you. Thank you
that.
so much for the presentation tonight, and the ones to come, and all the resources that are going to be flowing. We'll get this recording up to the website probably by end of day tomorrow, and we'll send out some information so people can find it who weren't able to come tonight, and definitely more to come on this for sure.
Definitely more to come. And I appreciate everyone's time. I hope you learned a lot. I hope I'll inspire you to rethink, take the challenge, share the information with your neighbors, and we'll see you again soon, I'm sure. So thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
And we're going to talk about the Bethel little competition offline.
Yeah. Perfect. Talk to you soon,
Thanks.
everyone. Thank you.